Yes, so like I was saying, my goal is really to spend the least amount of my time in slides, but it's going to be hard to use only one hand to actually control the editor. So bear with me. But when it comes to Unity, who in the room actually has tried to make a game in their entire life before? Most people, okay. Who has been using Unity to try to make a game before? Okay. And who has been using Unity Muse or have heard about Unity Muse before? Okay, cool. So a few people know about it. So for those who don't know what is Unity Muse, it's basically a platform, I would say, a tool when it comes to AI, and they are integrated directly into the editor. So my goal today will be to talk to you about this workflow and how we can improve your output when it comes to game making. But before, let's talk quickly about who I am. So my name is Manuel Sainsily. I'm a senior advocate at Unity when it comes to emerging tech, so AI, XR, and all of the above. But less about me and more about the things today. So in Muse, we have a couple of features and tools. Muse Chat is basically our AI assistant slash LLM. And then we have what we call the generators for sprites, 2D enhancer, and texture. And when it comes to textures, it's 3D textures with PBR and so on. And this platform is increasing and growing as we speak. It's still in its baby stage, but the goal is to have more and more models and to continue to expand on that with different use cases. Obviously, the way that Unity approaches the concept of AI has been from a very responsible perspective, what we call ethical AI at the time. And I've been an agent kind of ambassador of this for the brand for the past 2 years, and my goal has really been to also keep us honest when it comes to the community. I'm a traditional artist. Both my parents are painters, so it was very important for me as we transition into the world of generative AI that we keep us basically honest with what the reality of the market is, and also how can Unity be competitive in the space without trying to compete with people that are actually doing a way better job than us in some aspects of it. So that's, for example, the goal for Muse Sprite. We quickly realized that creating an entire sprite generator as a feature of a product that is part of a longer list of products wouldn't be as competitive as, let's say, creating a platform that would allow external third-party partners to work with us, be able to inject their own image models that are way more powerful, way more fine-tuned for use cases of gamers. But to do so, we need to make sure that the partners that work with us also follow the same ethical values. What is the ethical values for Unity? It's basically making sure that when the models are trained, they're not trained on copyrighted material, that the way that the training is approached and also the use cases are approached, that they have in mind basically the way that artists are usually approaching game making. So like I said, it's a collection of AI tools, and I'm going to skip even till the end because all of this is just a bunch of very boring slides. I just want us to have fun with the demo. So let me just go back to the editor. So if you never used Unity before, you go on unity.com, you install the hub. It's going to give you a screen that looks a little bit like this one. Let me just open it in the background. And when you're in the hub, you can click on a new project. And on the left side here, you have the sample list. All of the samples are basically free scenes and templates you can install. Again, all of this is free and available at the second that you download the Unity Hub from the main website. And I want to give you a particular attention on the universal 3D sample, which is over there. You can easily notice it when you will have a better internet connection. From the thumbnail, it's going to have actually 4 images in it because this entire sample has 4 scenes. 3 generated by the team, worked very hard with real artists to place every single item manually. It was the pre-Gen AI. And that scene is actually very cool. It starts with this one that is what is called the terminal. So it's a bit like an airport. And if I move my UI and I click on play here, I am actually able to navigate that scene from the perspective of a first-person character. If you're trying to make a shooter game in the past or any type of adventure game, you would use WASD to move around. That makes a lot of sense. And what's cool with this scene is that when you get to this first particular position here, you have a choice between 3 other rooms. One is dedicated for VR, and we built the URP sample, so Universal Rendered Pipeline, to showcase the power of great graphics on lower-end devices. So this scene on the right here will actually teleport you to another scene that is specifically made for lower-end devices and for graphics that are perfectly suited for VR. When you enter that room, you get this amazing, nice transition. And actually, fun fact, if you look close to the screen, you can see the CRT lines. Those are the actually effect that was generated in Unity. And then you would look at any of the teleporter like this, and it would literally teleport you right into the scene. That VR scene is actually cool because it's like an entire timeline made with Steam Machine. So everything moves by itself. I don't have to move around. And all of the assets, as you can notice, are more like stylized, kind of cel shading effect, which is perfect for MetaQuest and other devices for VR, AR, and so on. But again, we're not here to look into URP, we're here to talk about AI. So I actually chose to go into the Oasis scene, which is one of the two other scenes that we have for this project. And what I like about the Oasis scene is that it's targeted for the lower-end devices like an iPhone 8. So I'm going to actually have to move and teleport us where the scene makes sense, just so I can show you. There we go. 1 minute. What I like about this scene is the quality of the shaders on the water. I really like to see also some of the design elements that we can see on the rock here. Every now and then you have this little effects of like dust falling, it's rock falling. All of these things are very low on the performance. It's actually pretty cool the way that this scene was built. If I actually the gizmo, you'll see some of those stamps icons. We call them decals. The decals are basically 2D images projected on the surface of those rocks. So if I move this cube around, you can see that some of the projected details here are actually really following the rock structure behind, which adds a lot of details without adding poly to the room, which is very important if you're making a game for small devices. And again, this is the power of URP. So this was a perfect scene for me to try to use Muse Chat, which shows the power of Muse Chat in action. So let's get into it. One of the use cases, and again, my background is in design, so 15 years of product design specifically for XR. And no development. I'm not a developer, I would never claim to be, although I understand language and can actually work with developers. That's not my job. But when you work in a team making a game, unless you're developers doing everything by yourself, and even if you are, you need to have a communication system with different team members in your room. If I'm a level designer or I'm the artist bringing the assets and such, I will have to make sure that the rest of my teammates are implementing the code for it, understanding the language or thinking. And obviously, there's a lot of work that's done early on, really trying to make a game, which is on the ideation, on finding the fun, on coming up with concepts. There's a lot of concept art and music and all of the above that are made at a very quick way just to prototype and get the idea quicker in front of the publisher, or to maybe gather some money from your community, or to start to put your game out there before it's even finished to be complete. And the whole publishing part, working with Steam and doing on the marketing side, is another piece. When you're an indie game developer, you might not have all of this equipment with you to be successful. Sometimes it's not even the game itself, it's just the way you market it. And it's just hard to make games in general. We know it. Unity have been around for decades and they know that. So how can AI can come in without replacing artists, but also enabling the people that have not been able to make games before to make games today? And those are currently making games, how can we make their life easier while giving them enough control? That's where Muse Chat comes in. So you install it from unity.com/muse. Right, there will be a code at the end that you can just scan once, which all information that I'm going to share today will be included in. So once you install the package from Muse, you get this menu icon called Muse, and then you can open the chat, which is this floating window. So I'm not going to give you a course on LLM. Most people in the room have seen other presentations today. You know what that interface looks like. It's the same. You have a text field, you have a history, you can look at previous conversation, and you have multimodality and so on. In our case, we're really focusing just on text, but we can also attach other things to the conversation. One of the superpower of Muse Chat is one. It's been trained ethically on Unity-owned proprietary data. That means anything that's available on our Learn platform, the learn.unity.com website, where you find all of the tutorials and the content, it knows everything about it. So it knows better the Unity platform than any other LLM you can inquire to. It also is trained on documentation, very thorough. And it's also trained on the discussions forums, where usually our community of developers talk to each other, ask questions, and answer questions, fix bugs, and stuff like that with the staff. So that means that it's great at solving problems. And I want to show you this particular use case where you can literally attach anything to the conversation. It can be an object, like this rock over there, I can click on attach item, and now the rock, if I click here, it's part of the context of the conversation. That means that if I ask a question to Unity Muse, it will know better than a general LLM that I could use on a separate window. And the fact that it's integrated right into the editor from a UX perspective, I think makes it a little bit easier to iterate with it. So one of the ideas that the team gave me was to think about, okay, Manu, you're not a developer, you don't know how to go about this, but wouldn't it be cool that the rest of this room that's very much the desert is a bit more populated with assets like visuals, plants, rocks, and so on. And obviously, the design that's currently there around the Oasis has been handmade. So the team has placed every single item, rotated them, moved them accordingly. But if someone like me comes and wants to do like a quick prototype and just update for a DLC or bring a new idea to the table, it will take me as much time as this team has put into the effort of doing this scene, which was multiple months of work. But in a couple of seconds, I'm able to actually iterate on this idea by coming up with a full concept. So one of the first things that I did when I was using Muse Chat was to ask it a bit more about my project. So you can ask questions like, give me a summary of my project. And in the answer, you will know the different objects that are in the scene, the different hierarchy and categories of those game objects. It could know things about the user rendering pipeline that is basically being used on the version of the product that I'm using. But even in depth, sometimes there are things that you might not know even by using the settings, or that could take a lot of time to figure out. So I asked a fun question, which was around how many objects are in the scene. Initially, it told me 51, which was clearly not right, because there's way more sand and item in the scene than 51. So I iterated on the question. I was like, did you take into account the children? And I said the children, like the kids. I didn't specify the children hierarchy in that window on the left that's outside of the editor. I just said the children, and he understood what I meant in the context of this natural language from human, translated it into a code, and told me, well, there's actually 646 objects in the scene. If I were to count that by hand, it would still be counting right now. Again, not necessarily a very specific use case to what you are doing with Unity, but it just gives you an idea and inspiration for what you could be asking. But now, there's this second part of Muse Chat that I didn't show you, which is Muse Run and Muse Code. And those two capabilities are different from the conversational aspect that you have by default. With Muse Run and Muse Code, you can generate code that actually works. It's precompiled, so you don't have to guess and test it with a lot of ChatGPT on the side and just cross fingers and it's going to work when you bring it into Unity. And you should be able to use any element that you want on the side, but the value of Muse Chat is that it precompiles it. Second is the capacity of running a command. So if you heard about MCP or the steroids recently, you're aware that you can now control via third party or via code directly a lot of programs on your machine. And with Muse Chat, the team has been thinking about this concept for years, ahead of when Muse existing. And one of the cool ways that we do that is with Muse Run. So Muse Run actually understands your command differently, and it will be on the secondary tab at the bottom here. One of the things that I came up with was this idea of doing a camera scatter concept. So I was like, okay, what if I could, this is me talking in natural language. What if I could duplicate any selected object 10 times at random XYZ position, 10 units above the original object, then scatter the object on the ground with a traditional radius of 5 units. Anyway, that sentence is very long. And I came up with just a one breath coming from a designer mindset. And he understood everything that I said. What did he do next? Generated an entire command, which, if I don't care, I need to read. But really, it gives me just one button, which is this run big button on the right. And what does that do? Let me select the rock and the specific tree over there. If I look somewhere else, it's actually going to understand three different things. The selection object, which is now off camera. The angle of the camera within the scene with a raycast directly towards a surface that is at the bottom, which in this case the terrain. And it will scatter that object, orient it in different ways, so it doesn't just look like a copy-paste of the same object, and try to work it with me in one click. There we go. So just like that, I'm able to basically select anything in my scene, look around, and click again, and populate it. And that shortcut is now a conversation that I have saved at the top of my Unity Muse Chat conversation, which I can reuse many, many times to help me level design my work. And again, that's just Manuel Sainsily, the designer, thinking of a concept and coming in on stage to show it to you. But now you can understand a little bit of the power that Muse Chat has And for your own project, you might come up with different solutions. Another thing that can be attached to Muse Chat that I didn't tell you about is the log from the console. And this is huge because a lot of time when I come up with ideas for new script, there's all these errors that I might not be able to fix or understand. And sometimes they are very abstract in their definition. Unless you've been working with the editor for 10 years, once a new user comes in, it's scary. You might spend so much time just on Google trying to figure out the problems. So one thing I like to do is to actually attach the error to the conversation and ask it to fix it. So that's another thing that you can do now. Attach logs from the console directly. So I'll quickly go back to the water here. I really like the way that the water looks on the side, by the way. One thing that I did was creating a cube called an aquarium, and I basically attached it to an empty object. If I activate the mesh render on the side, you can see it's really just a cube and it's empty. Because I want to play with that volume and instance specific fish inside it. So I downloaded a fish from the asset store. You can download it for free. It's nothing fancy. And what I'm doing is that through a conversation that I have with Muse Chat, I'm attaching the aquarium as well as the fish in the conversation. So let me attach the aquarium here, and I can go here and select the fish, which in our case is beluga, and I'm going to attach it to the conversation as well. So now we have two different items attached to the context. One is a game object in the scene, the other is a object free file coming from my project file, sorry. And what I do is that I scatter them directly into the water. So now the next thing you can do is basically generate a script using Muse Chat, which I did earlier, and have the script attached to all of your belugas. You put them directly into this component on the side. I have a few control points that I scattered around the scene. Those are just empty objects. We're going to put the log inspector at the top right, and very quickly just attach those control points. And now, even though the speed is a little bit too crazy, I'm going to reduce it to 1 and leave the rotation speed to 3. If I press play, let's see the result. Go back to the scene view. There we go. So what this script is doing, and I have this history of the conversation over there, is basically understanding that I want to have this object patrolling around this different point that I created, but I don't want every fish to follow each other so they don't look like just a duplicate of each other. So I ask in a very natural language again to have them randomly going through different points in the scene and doing that. The reason why I'm showing you this is basically, again, not a developer, just a designer coming with a concept, and I can easily iterate and present it to the group. So I'm going to stop it there because I don't want to spend too much time and give the other presenter a chance to also go after me. But basically, that's the power of Muse Chat. There's more to Muse. There is texture generation, image generation, and honestly, you can go online and look it up, unity.com/Muse. If this was very interesting to you and you want to learn more about it and our ethical guidelines, all of these articles and those links are available just behind this one QR code. So all you have to do is scan it. You can answer this very 15-second survey that just tells you, was it a good presentation, was it a bad one? So that I get to come back maybe to next year Edge Intelligence event again. And thank you for your attention.